This is Democracy Watch. Mark, we have a story that just came out that really caught my attention. Donald Trump is already making quick work, again, before even taking office, of swapping out U.S. attorneys. So first off, how worried should we be about this versus how normal something like this is?
Okay, so there's a part of this that's very normal, and then there is a part of this that is so abnormal, it should send a chill down everyone's spine. So it is not unusual for new presidents to want to replace the holdover U.S. attorneys, because they are political appointees, with people of their own. Right? I mean, that makes perfect sense. You would expect that just as you have other political appointees turnover, U.S. attorneys turnover. What is different here is that obviously Donald Trump has not nominated new U.S. attorneys, nor would you expect him to. That's not going to be the highest priority in the list of potential nominees. So what usually happens is the president either says, okay, U.S. attorneys, stay if you can for a few weeks until we get our own people, or, I really want to replace everybody, so you step down, and then we will have the highest ranking career person take over, right? So a career person in the number 2 slot or the number 3 slot becomes the acting U.S. attorney. And that person acts as the steward of the office until a new person can be put in place. Donald Trump is not going to do that. He doesn't want to elevate nonpartisan people. He doesn't want to elevate the next in line to take over and run the office. Instead, reportedly, according to Bloomberg, they are searching for careerists who are in the Department of Justice, but who are loyal to Donald Trump, and they're just going to put them in charge. So this may not be the number 2 person in that office. This may not even be someone in the office. This may be someone from someplace else, but it may be a line prosecutor, maybe someone who has much less experience. But he's looking for the loyalists in the government already, in the Department of Justice system already, to put in charge of these offices. Now, that is chilling for 2 reasons. Number one, the idea that he has a line into who those people are means that those people are surfacing. Right. Those people there is a competition maybe going on within the Department of Justice already, and presumably throughout the rest of the federal government, by people who think they can make a name for themselves. They can surface themselves as MAGA adherents from day one and jump up the system. And that should be terrifying to everybody.
How much of an impact could these people have both at the top, and how much pushback, how much of a bulwark can folks lower than them who aren't these MAGA sycophants, how much of a bulwark could they present against these folks who are, again, surfacing as MAGA loyalists?
Look, one of the things you and I have talked about as part of this series for months, starting with Project 2025 and when it first came out and since, has been this idea that Donald Trump wants to replace government on the merits with cronyism. He wants to replace nonpartisan careerists with people who are MAGA loyalists. Well, what he is combining that here with is a competition to prove that you're a MAGA loyalist, right?
Yeah.
Because he is finding people within the system to sort of self-identify. And you know as well as I do, that doesn't surface the best. Right?
Yeah. Right? I mean, inherently, that is a race to the right. It's going to be a race to see who can be extreme enough to both catch the eye of Donald Trump unto itself, but then also beat out all the other MAGA loyalists who are surfacing themselves.
Right. And who are some people who we saw do that in the first term? People like Jeffrey Clark.
Yeah.
People like Kash Patel, right? These were the people who were like, I can catch the eye of the president by proving that I am, more loyal than anybody else.
And so really, at the end of the day, that's the only qualification he's looking for. He's not picking Kash Patel because he's especially competent doing X, Y, and Z. It's because he is the most loyal, the most willing to do the bidding of Trump, and that's it. So you don't have to have some deep resume. You don't even have to have much of a resume at all, which the majority of Trump's qualifications are showing us. You really just have to show undying fealty to the God King.
Right. And you asked the question, so what about the bulwark? Well, it has 2 effects on the rest of the careerists. Number one, some of them look and they're like, oh, well, that's the way to get ahead, right? So like it sort of invites, as you say, a race to the most extreme rightward MAGA position, right? Even among people who might not otherwise believe it because they see it as a career path. But the second is, think about what it does for morale for the good people, right? For the people who are there for the right reasons, for the people who do want to do the right thing. What message does it send them? right? It tells them they may want to look for a job someplace else, right? They are not willing to prove themselves loyal, and it exposes them in that process. So it is corrosive both in creating women out. They become the person who feels like they don't have a home, and maybe they leave. Maybe they themselves become the object of suspicion. Maybe they become the object of what were their social media posts, or who did they vote for, those kinds of litmus tests that we worry about. And so this is a very, very dangerous moment in American democracy. This is something that we all ought to worry about.
And so when we're in a position where, for example, let's say Donald Trump gives an illegal order, and this is something he spoke with Pam Bondi about during her confirmation hearing, which she refused to even humor because we couldn't possibly imagine someone like Donald J. Trump, this beacon of virtue and integrity, ever ordering an illegal act. But if there's an illegal order given that the folks at the top of the intelligence community are perpetuating on Trump's behalf, to what extent can the folks who are beneath them block this from being carried out by virtue of it being an illegal order? Like, to what extent can they refuse to comply with an order that they view as unconstitutional, or that may very well be unconstitutional, versus the fact that it was an order that was given by folks at the top of the intelligence community, or even Donald Trump himself?
Right. Or in this case, U.S. attorneys who are charged with prosecuting crimes, right? I mean, if you're a line prosecutor and your boss says, go open an investigation into this person, and Kash Patel is like, yeah, I got you 3 agents, is the line prosecutor really going to say, no, I'm not going to do that because it's illegal? If they say, go to a judge and submit this affidavit, go to a judge and try to get a search warrant or issue or open a grand jury, are they going to be the ones to say, no? You hope they are. But honestly, how many people are going to self-rationalize that and say, well, I'll just open the investigation? All right, well, I'll just issue a couple of subpoenas. All right, maybe I have to bring an indictment, right? Like, it becomes a slippery slope, and it is going to undermine not just the actual integrity of the judicial system or the intelligence community or government, right? It will in fact do it, but it's also going to become impossible to tell what were the lawful things that were done because they had to be done, and what were the things that were unlawful. Like, every indictment will now be subject to that kind of second guessing, and understandably and rightfully so, by the way. And every intelligence community finding that there is a threat domestically or abroad will be second guessed, and rightfully, understandably. I wrote for Democracy Docket not that long ago that one of the things we need is for judges to not give a presumption of good faith to prosecutors who come in seeking search warrants, indictments, or criminal prosecution of Democrats or political opponents. Normally, whenever a politician or someone involved in politics is indicted or investigated, they say witch hunt, right? Where we hear that. And prosecutors and judges look at prosecutors and they start with a presumption. You know what? These are career prosecutors. Unless there's really extraordinary evidence to the contrary, I'm going to assume this was done in good faith. I'm not going to assume that this was selective prosecution. I'm not going to assume this was malicious prosecution. But I'm telling you, as a Democratic lawyer, I don't think that judges can start with that proposition. I think if you start to see investigations of prominent Democrats, of people on the January 6th Commission, of people who were enemies of Donald Trump on Kash Patel's list, of people who testified against Donald Trump, I think judges need to not walk in there with an assumption that this was good faith. And that's the problem, Brian. By doing this thing with the U.S. Attorney's Office, they are, in fact, confirming my concerns. And I think they are going to put judges in a lot of really hard spots.
Well, I think that puts on full display the extent to which the courts will be especially important in the next few years moving forward. And you have been beating the drum about this in Democracy Docket, which is the news outlet you founded to focus on everything voting elections. Again, if ever there was a time to sign up and make sure that you can read this.
On Friday, after the Supreme Court upheld the ban, it's almost certain some of items Trump promised on the campaign trails to execute on his first day won't happen. But the scale of Trump plans, if the materialize, would go well beyond any recent president's attempt at vetting in power of his office, testing the limits of presidency. In the eyes of Trump and his team, the flurry of action on his first day will be hurled the arrivals of new regime. A short break not only from the last 4 years but also from the chaos that governed the early days of Trump's first go around. This time, the message is one of swift action on a greater scale and with better coordination.